All right, boom. Let's do it. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Money Talks. We got a lot to talk about as always. Let's get to it. All right, so we got Bitcoin pumping today. Really exciting. We've got Ethereum hard fork. Amazing what's going on. So we'll talk about what's going on with Ethereum, uh, how Ethereum is now burning tokens, and I think this is going to be super bullish. Looks like we could burn up to $1 billion, if not more, worth of Ethereum in the next 12 months. U.S. Congress has gone crazy, a little bit of NFT craziness. We'll take a look at the charts as always. We've got some new coin listings on Abra, which we'll talk about. And of course, we'll take your questions. We're going to do a bit of a shorter show today, probably about 30, 40 minutes on vacation. So let's see if we can get through this, but really exciting. So I'm gonna get right to it and just get into it with a little bit of an Ethereum update here. So um, we've got this hard fork, the London hard fork. What is the London hard fork? We've talked about this a few times before on the show. But the hard fork was successfully activated on the Ethereum network yesterday, and it's a really important upgrade for Ethereum. And it's the next to last upgrade before Ethereum 2.0, and this succeeds the Berlin upgrade, which we also talked about. And there'll be one last Shanghai hard fork before we fully get to proof of stake. So just as a reminder, a hard fork is a backward incompatible system-wide upgrade. So what that means is that unless you're running as, let's in this case, a miner or a node validator, depending upon what type of software you're running or token blockchain you're running, um, you're going to be incompatible with the old software. Okay, so you need to upgrade if you're in the Ethereum system and you want to maintain forward compatibility. So the hard fork therefore requires all the node operators to upgrade their clients' software. And if some participants don't opt in, it could cause a split. And we saw this with Ethereum Classic versus Ethereum. And you could purposefully split, right? So you can, if you want to create your own coin, you can actually hard fork the network as well. We've seen that many, many times. Okay, um, because most of the changes to the network are backward compatible. The deployment on August 5th wasn't really a hard deadline to upgrade non-mining nodes, right? Which will continue to operate until the difficulty bomb, which we'll talk about in a minute, in the older version of the software then activates. So instead, legacy transactions are still included in the blocks, but will not benefit from the increased expressivity of this new pricing system. So basically, um, there are several improvements to Ethereum via the London hard fork, but EIP 1559 is definitely the most consequential. It makes gas fees more predictable by restructuring the gas price into a base fee and a priority fee. So let's talk about this for a second, right? So already you can see here that a huge amount of Ethereum has been burned. This was as of a couple hours ago. It looks like about 4,800 Ethereum had already been burned. And it looks like this number could just go into the billions, right? So from a few hours ago, the founder of the Uniswap project said that Uniswap has already burned 80 ETH, right? And that alone, at that rate and at the current prices, that assumes the price doesn't go up, right? That would be worth more than $1 billion worth of ETH burned per year. So this is what we call a potentially deflationary change to Ethereum, which means that the amount of currency in circulation could end up declining over time, which would obviously significantly increase demand versus supply, which could ultimately be extremely bullish. I think this will be more long-term bullish than necessarily short-term. I don't think Ethereum needs much help, honestly, in the short term to be bullish, but obviously this could add more rocket fuel to the fire, to the rocket in the midterm. And so I'm pretty excited about it. So the way this works is that in 1559, you basically you apply this base fee and what they call a priority fee. So let me see if I can explain this in simple terms. So the base fee is a minimum network fee that must be paid for every transaction, right? While the priority fee, or let's call it a tip, is a user specified and fee and paid directly to the miner. But here's the rub. In 1559, the base fee is always burned. So the miners only receive the regular block reward and the priority fee. Now, that actually says that, well, long term, the miners aren't really getting a transaction fee revenue anymore. Well, that doesn't really matter for a couple of reasons. One, we're moving to proof of stake anyway. And two, this presupposes that as the network grows, the value of the block rewards would go up. But again, more importantly, the transaction fees in a proof of stake model, the model works totally different. So the fact that the miners are only receiving the priority fee is not really consequential in and of itself in the long term, right? But anyway, this ensures that only ETH can be used to pay for transactions. It reduces some risks associated with this so-called MEV, which we've talked about in the past, which you can look at on a couple of earlier shows, and arguably improves the economics for the entire network, which I'm, like I said, very bullish on. So 1559 also sets the groundwork for the fee structure, as I said, in ETH2, which are expected to be much lower than the existing fee structure once we move to proof of stake. There are some other upgrades, which are well, also it delays what we call the difficulty bomb, which means that the network will continue to function correctly to December. Now, what that also means in English is that the Ethereum 2.0 upgrade is effectively delayed until at least December. My guess is beyond that. We'll probably go into the first half of next year. But look, I think whether or not you believe in the proof of stake model, the ship has sailed. It's coming. I think it's being handled correctly. The stages seem to be well thought through, and I, for one, support the progress that's been made so far. Let's see. So let's talk about Congress for a minute, right? So really interesting, goings on here. So as you may know, and for those of you who aren't in the U.S., we have a lot of people on the video who aren't in the U.S. Let me just explain to you what's going on. So so basically, we have this multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill in the U.S. Now, in their infinite wisdom, and it still boggles the mind as to why they would do this, because there's thousands of different types of businesses in the U.S. that you could tax and that are taxed, but there's language in this bill that basically broadens IRS tax reporting rules to include a slew of previously uncovered cryptocurrency industry stakeholders. And it's so vague, so poorly written. Um, anyway, but at a high level, the tax language in the bill expands the definition of a broker under IRS, which is our tax reporting system here in the US, their reporting rules to include a range of crypto industry and network participants. And these brokers need to record and produce records of transactions to the government for tax reporting purposes. The problem is that the way they define the word broker includes any person who is responsible for regularly providing any service effectuating transfers of digital assets on behalf of another person. And so even with this kind of updated language that some other folks have been, proposing, it seems like, certain types of stakeholders, maybe miners, for example, who can't possibly comply with this language would basically be made illegal via this language. So this really needs to be fixed. Now, the good news is there are some senators in the US who are proposing an amendment to the bill that would address this, that would exclude validators, which effectively means miners, anyone selling hardware or software for the sole function to permit a person to control their own private keys, for example, um, anyone developing digital asset protocols, et cetera, et cetera. So now there's competing language here, which is concerning, but it's unclear, right? What's going to pass? Um, we'll see, but it's worrisome. Now, it doesn't necessarily affect all of you because you have tax obligations in the U.S. if you're buying and selling crypto anyway. So it doesn't really affect you. It affects the companies that operate in the crypto space. Okay. Um, anyway, now I read some comments from some of my peers in the space, and somebody did point out that it's been pretty cool to see the crypto industry work together with certain Congress people in Washington to try to make a dent in the infrastructure bill. And like I said, it has been supported by several people in the industry, which is good news. Okay, but we're not out of the woods yet. And like I said, it's unclear what's ultimately going to pass. Um, but what's interesting is, like I said, we have these dual competing amendments. Both are bipartisan, but one is favored by the industry because it more broadly excludes entities from being considered brokers. Like I said, miners, certain software providers, hardware wallets, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so. And then there was this other bill, which is backed by the White House, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Um, anyway, it looks like potentially they're going after proof of work, which could be discouraging. It's a little confusing. It's also yet to play itself out, and we'll see what's going to happen. I wish this, first of all, this was completely unnecessary, right? As I said, as somebody who's buying and selling cryptocurrency, like all of you, those of you at least who are in the US, you already have tax obligations. So it's not like there's some new revelation here that all of a sudden we all have to pay taxes. So we'll see. Anyway, all right. So let me talk a little bit about NFTs before we get to some questions, and we'll talk about what's going on with the Bitcoin, Ethereum price. So yeah, so lots of interesting goings on in the NFT space. Last week, CryptoPunks sold 7 punks for over $1 million each, including the 2,000 plus Ethereum purchase. That's like over $5 million of number 5217, which is a gold chained ape, right? So the line of NFTs saw new highs in daily sales of over 160,000 Ethereum. That's what I was told, which is like $40 million as of yesterday. And at a sale count of something like 300 tokens over the last 3 days of July, with the average, now this is the average sales price, surging to just under $200,000. These are astronomical numbers. And of course, right, this is going to lead, as it always does, to a huge number of people trying to get into the NFT space. All kinds of FOMO over getting into the space, owning NFTs, and we'll see. But I'm very bullish on the NFT space. I think not only for collectibles and art, but for all kinds of different applications, integration into the physical world. We talked about the concert ticket sales via the Kings of Leon auction a few months ago, which was really successful. And then you've probably heard about this Axie Infinity game. Those of you in the Philippines are actually leading the charge. I know we have a huge audience here in the Philippines, and I'm reading just astronomical numbers. Anyway, so one of the interesting side effects of the NFTs is they've driven substantially larger demand for block space in the Ethereum blockchain, which is reflected on chain by higher gas prices. So as if sending stable coins from person to person wasn't expensive enough, now you're competing with NFTs as well. And so today, three of the top contracts on the burn leaderboard of high fee protocols were all NFT projects, which collectively accounted for over 1,000 Ethereum burned in the 12 hours following 1559's activation, which we talked about earlier. So this is actually really good and really bullish for the growth of NFTs and should help relieve some of that congestion, which I wouldn't call it unintended congestion, but it's there nevertheless. Okay, so let's see, what else do we want to get to here? So let's talk about some charts for a moment. Let me get over here. So as the show started, it looks like Ethereum's pumping as well. Let me start with Bitcoin, then we'll get to Ethereum. Looks like we're pushing 43K. So you turn away from the charts for a minute, and things go crazy. Let me explain why I'm super excited about what's going on with. Here's the chart. So look at this. This is the trend line from yesterday, this orange line here that you see. We just broke above this trend line. Now, this was the sustain. I call it a weak trend line, but still, it was needed to be broken for us to basically reclaim, this kind of sideways accumulation phase channel. I would say if we close today above 43K, which is certainly possible, we've got several hours to go in kind of this daily charting system. This is going to be super bullish, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see 50K uh, in in August. Okay, so super bullish for Bitcoin. Again, we are. It looks like we're at 42.8 right now, and like I said, super bullish. If you look at the last couple of weeks, this is basically a new high, a new swing high versus this ugly May 19th candle. So I've always been looking at May 19th as the initial day we want to break. And the high on May 19th was 43.6. So if we could basically get above 43.6, that tells us that the worst of that kind of pullback in May might be behind us. We'll see. Okay, so let's go to Ethereum, which is also looking bullish. Now, what's interesting about Ethereum is that it's still in this accumulation phase versus Bitcoin, which seems to have broken out of it. The top of the accumulation phase here is about 2,900, and we're just below that right now. So I think a sustained break above 3K for Bitcoin means look out. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin kind of takes over the lead from Ethereum. I'm sorry, from Bitcoin in terms of moving us forward, which traditionally has led to a follow-on alt season, right? So again, just looking here, here's the sideways accumulation phase. So you can kind of see just moving to the right. We're at the top of that now. So if you think that Ethereum is going to kind of keep pace with Bitcoin, we're probably going to break out of that accumulation phase in August, as opposed to going back down into the channel again, which would be the other option. Okay, so that's good news there. In terms of what I'm seeing on chain, let me go back to the Bitcoin chart for a second. All of you know I'm a big fan of Will Clemente's work. You probably hear him on Pomp's podcast every week, and he's got a newsletter which I strongly recommend. But I'll just give you a quick summary of what Will was up to this week. You know, we're still consolidating up until actually this morning. We were consolidating below resistance at the top of a multi-month range. We're now just above that resistance. So very good news there. Every cohort that he tracks is in net accumulation. Now, with all of you as retail investors leading the way, the spot buying in retail has significantly picked up in the last few weeks. In other words, in English, that's people buying actual Bitcoin, not derivatives or any other contracts, but Bitcoin itself, no futures. So all of these qualitative and quantitative measures of what we call supply shock and shortage are showing very strong upward trends. In other words, it looks like very soon there's simply not going to be enough Bitcoin as money or Bitcoin keeps moving off of exchanges into either wallets like Abra where you can earn interest or potentially cold storage. But in any case, it's moving off of exchanges, which generally represents what we call a supply shock. Okay. On-chain activity is still quiet, but we're still seeing less transactions, but bigger size transactions. And I think that there's a general acceptance that, now with other projects like what we're seeing in El Salvador, that as layer two gains more traction, I think people are more hesitant to do smaller transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain, even though the mining fees are very, very low right now. So we'll see how important the volume of on-chain transactions becomes over time. But right now, it's probably the one kind of slightly bearish sign we have is that on-chain activity is still relatively quiet. Okay, so as I said before, 42 to 43K breakout is really what we need to be super bullish. But the bottom line is that everything we're seeing here points to a significant supply shock, right? So anyway, um, all looking very bullish today. So that's the good news. We picked a good day here for Money Talks. Let's see, what else do we have? All right. Um, we should do a country check. So if you haven't chimed in on where you are, let us know. And if you have any questions, definitely tee them up, and I'll get to them now, either on the charts, on Abra, anything else going on. Lastly, I want to talk about before we get to the questions, some of the new coin listings that you'll see in Abra. Let me go through these. We've got three of them: Ren, Matic, and LRC. So I'll talk about each of them for a moment here. Just get back to my notes. So let's see. So let's talk about, which one should we talk about first? Let's talk about Ren. So Ren is basically what we call um, like a layer. Basically, it enables. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. Excuse me one second. So um, it's an open protocol that effectively enables the movement of value between blockchains. Maybe you've heard about Thor chain. I look at it as somewhat similar to that. It's in very early stage. The market cap's about 400 million as of yesterday, but it's a pretty cool project. If you haven't checked it out, you can go to redproject.io and check it out. Then, of course, there's Loopring, which is LRC, which is basically for building decentralized crypto exchanges. So obviously, if you're familiar with Uniswap, you can build basically the similar types of applications using this Loopring project. Still very small. It's still about 300 million, so potentially huge upside there. So check out exchange.loopring.io for more details. And then, of course, the big boy of the group, we have Matic, which is the Polygon, right? And their goal is to transform Ethereum into a multi-chain ecosystem with layer two chains and standalone chains, side chains. The current market cap as of yesterday was about 6.6 billion. You can check it out at Polygon Technology. I am very bullish on Polygon. They're already getting a lot of developer support. And as I've told you many times, the reason that I believe that these alternative projects and altcoins are so important is because they represent technology competition to Bitcoin and Ethereum and other projects that I think we need to propel the space forward. And if you look at the developer support that Polygon is getting, excuse me, it shows you that people are really bullish on the space. Okay, so check out the new tokens. If you don't see them in the app, you press Add in the Trading View, and I'll bring that up in a minute so you can see when we go to the app. But like I said, I'm super bullish on Polygon. I'm actually bullish on all of these tokens, but it's not my personal goal here to pick winners and losers. It's more my job to kind of bring information as to what's going on in the industry, what's going on with Abra and the app, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so all right, so I've got my trusty app here, and I'll do some demos, answer some questions. Definitely want to, let me just fix the app here. It's not looking right. There we go. All right. So let me go back to the questions here. I know we've got a bunch teed up. So good morning wherever you are, or good evening and good night. I know we've got people. I'm actually in Europe, so it's early evening here. Let's see what else we got going on. So Tax BS in crypto is a joke. Donnie, I don't agree necessarily with tax rules, but I would discourage you from evading taxes. Pay your taxes. Um, the Dwayne says the problem in the past with ETH has been the extreme fees. The price of ETH goes up, the fees increase. Can you talk about the current and future state of gas fees of ETH? So yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, this upgrade to Ethereum does a couple of things. It should actually stabilize fees for a couple of reasons. One, it actually increases and decreases the block size with network congestion, which in and of itself should lower the fee over time in preparation for proof of stake, which should lower the fee even further. But then it also basically introduces this concept of the base fee and the tip, which should make the prediction of the required price to get a transaction inserted much, much easier to predict so that you're not overpaying. So the combination of those two things is very bullish on optimizing the fees and minimizing the necessary fees to get your transaction settled. Now, if we skyrocket and NFTs and stable coins are causing all kinds of, on-chain transactions to happen before the 2.0 upgrade, there's only so much this upgrade can do, meaning fees will still be high, but they should be better than they were before, especially with the fact that the size of the blocks could be up to double per block. Okay. Um, Good source. Wayne asks, is there a good source for technical analysis of cryptocurrencies? Yeah, Wayne, there's a whole bunch. So obviously, Abra.com lists all of the major cryptos we support, along with an analysis and an introduction as to what they are. We also have a 10-day email email course that we provide via Abra.com that should show you an intro to crypto in general. And after that, you can also look at Messari, Messari.com. They just announced a nice Series A funding round today. So congrats to Ryan and the team at Messari. Messari is a great website to learn about cryptocurrencies. They're very much into DeFi and NFTs. So you can go there. Um, Ty asks, is Abra thinking of adding Theta coin? So Ty, we don't pre-announce any currencies that we're going to support. It's not always up to us. Sometimes there's currencies we want to support that our liquidity partners and others don't want to either haven't listed yet or don't plan to list or maybe make available in certain countries but not others. So it makes it very difficult for us to pre-announce tokens. But as long as it's legal, we would love to add every token, but it's not always that simple. Um, so there's a question about Matic and how much you can transfer plus fees. I actually don't know the answer to that question. If the app doesn't explain, you can actually go into the app here, click on the hamburger menu at the top left, and see where it says "Contact Us." Press that at the bottom, right? And it'll bring up a contact page where you can fill this out. And at the bottom, you can basically choose withdrawal, ask your question. Usually they'll get back to you within a few minutes during the week. I've been seeing response times of actually less than 10 minutes. So if you have a question like that, the support team should be able to help you. Let's see what else. Another question about fees. If I buy coins like REN using USD or another stable coin, what fee/spread does Abra charge? So we don't actually charge a transaction fee. What we do is we show you on the screen. So let me show you here by going back to the main screen. I'm going to try to convert some Bitcoin. I'm going to click on exchange at the top, excuse me, and I'm going to convert some Bitcoin to, let's say REN, since that was your question, right? And I'll choose like 0.001 Bitcoin, and then it shows you the exchange rate, right? And so Abra does make a little bit of money on the conversion, but we show you the rates, and if you like the price, you can take the price, or you can wait for a better price in the future. But it explains it right there in the app. Okay. Let's see what other questions we have. When is 2FA coming with Authenticator? So this is something that we're actually actively working on right now. You should be seeing that fairly soon. So stay tuned for that. I know I promised that's coming. It is definitely coming. Um, DH asks about the Abra security. DH, I actually think Abra has the best security in the space. Let me explain why. We are adding 2FA via Google Auth style transactions to the app, but you actually have a key on the phone that secures access to your account so that the code that you enter is unlocking this key. So that combined with the authentication mechanism to access your phone actually makes the Abra wallet super secure. I trust it for all of my crypto, and again, I'm very comfortable with the security model. If you have more detailed questions on that, please contact support. And we have some details, I believe, on the Abra website that you can look at as well. But I'm very comfortable, um, and with the model. And as I said, 2FA via authenticator is coming. So that's a great question. Let's see. Yeah, so I see support is chiming in on that. And Bill, question on Eric asked question on stable coins and Abra. Why do institutions borrow stables instead of USD? Since the USD interest rates are much lower. That's a great question, Eric. So the thing you have to keep in mind, and this is part of why the yield that you earn. So if you go into my demo app here, you can see the interest rates. Like today, we're paying 8% on USDC, 8% on USDT, which is Tether, Pax, Trust Token, et cetera, right? So the reason we're able to pay such high rates is that we're able to lend at higher rates, right? We also maintain reserves, so that actually lowers the net interest that we pay out to you a little bit. But effectively, these institutional borrowers can be paying upwards of 10 to 15% for these stablecoin-based loans. In many cases, it's for a few reasons. One, because of the way they borrow, they don't have collateral that a bank would recognize, right? Banks often don't work with crypto companies. As you may have guessed, banks in the US and in the West aren't too fond, actually, banks anywhere really aren't very fond of working with cryptocurrency companies. But the demand for dollars, for example, from miners looking to expand their business, miners are sitting on a lot of crypto. They don't want to sell it because that's the business they're in, is mining crypto and holding it. But if they want to expand their business, they need dollars to do it. And they can borrow dollars by staking their Bitcoin and Ethereum as collateral with companies like Abra and borrowing in stable coins, which they can then convert to traditional dollars to fund and expand their operations. And it could be anybody from a hedge funds to other exchanges that may need to borrow to fund futures transactions, all kinds of different reasons why companies borrow in stable coins. Okay, so let me take a couple more questions. And we'll call it a day. I promised we would keep the show to about 34 minutes today. Maybe we should do a quick country check. I didn't ask for a country check today. And make sure you click the subscribe button, by the way. So do that right now, please. The subscribe button is super important. It basically tells YouTube, and if you're watching on Twitter, please subscribe to our Twitter feeds, Abra Global. Tells basically those social media companies that they should promote our show. Let's see. Um, Eric, let me take Eric's question. Did I mention before that we can request a certificate of deposit or statement for us to use our bank loan requirements? And the answer is I didn't mention it, but you can. So if you use that contact us form and tell us that you need that kind of bank statements for some kind of bank loan, like a mortgage or something else, we will send you that statement via the email address that you used when you registered for Abra. I've tried it out myself, and the statement is very readable, very simple. Eventually, it'll be in the Abra app. No time frame to announce for that, but we're just making sure we get it right first. So for now, you can request it via support. Okay, so Robert asks, can I summarize the rules about how long deposits have to stay in Abra? He wanted to withdraw, but got a message about the need to keep a certain amount in Abra until a future date. Yes, gladly, I will explain. So if you deposit, and this is a very country specific answer, okay? We support deposits from all over the world, bank wires, domestic bank wires in the US, international bank wires from outside the US, ACH in the US. We support Interac in Canada, Faster Pay in the UK, SEPA in Europe, cash networks in the Philippines, bank wires in the Philippines, um, you know, certain cash networks in Central America, banks in Central America. There's just all kinds of places we support deposits from. The only exception um, to this, basically what I was going to say, sorry, everybody has real-time access to their funds. If you deposit, you can immediately withdraw either your funds once they're in the accounts or the crypto. The only exception is if you use ACH in the US. Okay. If you use ACH in the US, there will be a hold on the funds. And that hold right now is, I think it's about 60 days. Now you can trade in real time, meaning if we give you immediate access to the funds, you can trade and go back and forth between dollars and Bitcoin or dollars and Ethereum and dollars as often as you want, but you won't be able to take the funds out to your bank account. Okay, so so hopefully that makes sense. And but again, if you're transferring in larger amounts or if you're concerned about being able to get the money out, I would strongly encourage you to use a bank wire instead of ACH. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Good question, Robert. Alan asks, are there any plans to produce a monthly account statement similar to what financial institutions use? So yeah, so Alan, as I mentioned before, we will be having this downloadable statement option directly in the app. Um, and hopefully that will meet your needs. John asks, can I repeat the name of the podcast I mentioned before? John, I think you're talking about Will Clemente, who is often on Pomp's podcast. You can follow Pomp on Twitter. Most of you already are. And Robert, just to clarify, yes, if you use Wire instead of ACH, there is no limitation on when you can withdraw funds. I think you have 1 day, actually. Let me take that back. I think there's like a 24-hour hold before you can withdraw. But for most people, if they don't do the trade right away, the hold doesn't apply anyway. Um, so Nigel asks if we can earn interest on Ripple. Nigel, we don't have much borrow demand for XRP today, maybe in the future. Obviously, XRP is still unavailable if you're in the US, but it is available to our non-US users. We'll see how that evolves in the future, but I would love to provide yield and interest on all of our cryptocurrencies, but obviously that presupposes that there's demand for borrowing those cryptocurrencies on a collateralized basis in order to generate the yield in the first place. Okay, let's see. So, what is my opinion of the new US proposed bill? Christian, I talked about this at the beginning of the show. I think it's ridiculous that I'm going to answer not about the need for infrastructure spending. That's a whole other issue. But including these cryptocurrency reporting requirements and the way they're worded, it makes no sense. Okay, like I said, it's IRS has already made clear that Bitcoin is property, that these crypto assets are property, and when you trade them, you have capital gains reporting obligations, especially if you actually earn on them. You may have the opportunity to actually write off losses, but in particular, they want you to pay taxes on your gains. So I honestly think it's unnecessary, but it is what it is. Now, since it's in there anyway, um, it's more important that it's worded correctly so that it doesn't do more harm than good. And that's the issue. The way it's worded, it does way more harm than good. All right. Anyway, um, let's see what else. I'm going to take a couple more questions here. And let's see, see if there's any on Twitter. Um, how do I move? Oh yeah, okay. So how do I move funds from into my interest earning account? Okay, so I'm going to bring up my app here, and I've got my phone. So let me make sure that you can see this correctly. So in the app, if I click on Earn, right, which brings up the demo here for the Earn account, at the top of the screen, I can click on transfer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer some of my Bitcoin. In this case, I'll transfer 0.01 Bitcoin, let's say. And I'm going to move that into my interest earning account. Okay. That's it. That's all I have to do. And those funds have now been moved um, from trading into earn, and I immediately start earning interest. I actually think technically it's tomorrow that I start earning interest. Now, if I want to move money out, I can click on withdraw at the top. Let's say I want to move that zero point zero 0.01 Bitcoin out of Abra Earn and back to trading. Maybe I want to sell some Bitcoin, right? So I can click on Bitcoin, I can type zero point zero 0.01, and that would move zero point zero 0.01 Bitcoin back to my trading account where I can trade it for dollars, withdraw it out of my account via bank wire, ACH, get cash, whatever I want to do. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question there. Um, let's see, a couple more questions teed up. Um, oh, Red Wine asks, have you heard about the Miami City coin? Will Abra offer it? Is that similar to a municipal bond? So, really good question on the municipal bond front. I actually don't know the answer to that. I haven't really thought it through. Yes, I've heard of the Miami City coin. It's a very clever project. By the way, Miami, if I understood correctly, is now mining and has already been earning money via crypto mining. I think they're doing proof of work via Bitcoin to start, but I saw the numbers, but I don't remember them. That's super cool. I give them a lot of credit for this. I'm shocked that more governments aren't looking at this. I mean, it's a great way to earn income for the city. Anyway, I don't have a strong opinion on the Miami City coin yet. I will take a deeper look at it. I'm not really sure, what to think of it yet. It's kitschy for sure, but I don't know if it's going to amount to anything. I think the fact that they're mining is way more interesting to me than the fact that the city issued a token. But maybe there's some application of the token that I haven't thought of. Rewards and things like that at retail, which could be interesting, depending upon who pays for it. Roger asks, is borrowing available in California? Roger, not yet. I am in California. So, obviously, I've got my demo of Abra Borrow here. I'll click on at the bottom of the screen. We have our application for lending in California is now pending. I believe we're live in 45 states with Abra Borrow and more coming, including California. Actually, we want all of them live, so the last 5 or so should be coming soon. So stay tuned for that. And like I said, California is way at the top of my priority list. So Roger, we hope to get that up very, very soon. And let's see. Um, to get her somewhere asks, excuse me, why don't you have Sol? Excuse me, one second. So as I mentioned before, we don't pre-announce tokens. We're constantly looking at adding more tokens. I'll go back to trade. If you want to see the current price, you can just look at the app and you can see on the screen the price on the screen. You can even click if you want to see, for example, wow, Bitcoin is really pumping. We're at 42.4. Click on the chart and I can see the day chart and you can see Bitcoin here. Drag my finger, peaked at just under 43 and has pulled back to 42.46, but looks really bullish. So you can see the prices in real time, and you can actually see your transaction history in terms of earning interest or buying Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see that for all of the coins. Ronald asks, is Abra Borrow coming to Canada? Ronald, yes, Abra Borrow is eventually going to come to Canada. Again, same issue with the registration and licensing. We're working on it and something we would definitely like to do. Nigel asks, if the Abra wallet failed or was no longer available for some reason, could I sweep my wallet? So Nigel, in that case, since we're a custodial system, we would give you probably a web-based solution for transferring coins to other wallets. But honestly, we're a profitable company, well-financed, backed by the likes of American Express and very large venture capital companies. We're not going anywhere. If anything, we're getting bigger. We're hiring like crazy. We're expanding the number of countries and states and services. We've got a lot of announcements coming up over the next few weeks. So Abra is not going anywhere. But we take the security of and the safety of the funds and the crypto that our partners are managing for you very, very serious. And we're constantly looking at how this all works to make sure that in the worst case, everyone's funds are secure. But the most important thing here is that we're a large and growing concern, profitable, generating cash, and I think we've got a really bullish future ahead of us. CWide asks, does Abra use Chainlink oracles? Abra doesn't run its own smart contract platform today, so we have no need for oracles. We basically take data from the exchanges that provide liquidity for us, and that's all we do. And then LiveGrains asks if I can comment on interest rates, in particular Litecoin. So I'll go back to Earn here, and you can see the interest rates. We're currently paying 3.25% on Litecoin, which is actually very, very good. And look, this is going to change as demand changes. In the case of Litecoin, the borrow demand fell precipitously, which caused us to slightly lower the rates. But I believe, independent of any third-party reward token, our in-kind rates, meaning the interest you receive in Litecoin, is one of the best rates you're going to get. So I'm like I said, I keep all of my liquid crypto in Abra, my cash, my Bitcoin, my Ethereum, earning yield. I love it, and I'm very comfortable with the rates we're paying. The risk management at Abra in terms of how we generate the rates and how we protect your funds is just awesome. And I'm really bullish on what the team has built. Ion, same answer as Canada in terms of borrow coming to the UK. Yes, we're looking at it. It's a licensing issue specific to the UK market that our compliance team is looking on. And last question of the day goes to Ralph, who asks the question that I love to answer every single week, which is Abra looking into a debit card? Ralph, we're constantly looking at all kinds of new features. I'm not going to pre-announce anything except to say keep watching, both here on Money Talks, on social media, and I promise you, you may have a very nice surprise in the coming weeks and months, not only with your question, but maybe with potentially lots of other features as well. Christian, just one last comment. We do actually send an email out. So when we list new coins, and we also announce them on Twitter. So make sure that you subscribe to our emails, and also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn is a great one. Really a big fan of what Abra's doing there. Follow us on the interwebs, and also most importantly via the email feed, and you will get those updates. I assure you. Okay, I get them myself. The emails are really well done, and CY, you're very welcome. Doing the show is my pleasure. Okay, so we ended up at 50 minutes, so I'm gonna call it there and go enjoy a last bit of sunlight, and wish you all a fantastic weekend. And let's see if we can maybe even get up to 45K Bitcoin this weekend. I don't know. It's looking pretty bullish. Maybe we'll end just one last revisit for the chart here. Let's go back to Bitcoin. Yeah, it's looking okay. It's pulled back since the start of the show to 42.3, but that's okay. The last few days, every dip is being bought. That was a quick pump to 43, which was quickly rejected. So that's not a huge surprise. There was probably a whole bunch of sell orders at the large exchanges just under 43. So it did. Yeah, it looked like it got up to 43.2, 43,200. So I'm sure there were a bunch of sell orders there at 43,000, given that we've gone from basically 29,000 and change a couple of weeks ago to 43,000 in literally a couple of weeks. It's pretty awesome. So, all right, so we're going to leave it there, and I will wish you all a fantastic weekend. And thank you for joining us as always on Money Talks. Have a great weekend. Take care.